Yes, thanks for staying with us on the Sports Show. Well, KG, nearly time to close out the show. I wanted to ask you what you thought about Australia playing Ireland in the International Series. 25,000 people at Adelaide Oval. I know it was a bit hot. Aussies win by 10 points. How did you see it?
Well, look, I'm not a big fan. I've got to be honest, Smiley. I'm not a big fan of it. It's neither the Irish game or our game. It's a hybrid game, as we all know. Look, 25,000 fans at the Oval. We saw Fife at his best. Was absolutely fantastic. The players love it. I applaud that. But from my point of view, it's not my cup of tea. I would much prefer, and I've said it a million times before, that the AFL put the same weight behind organising State of Origin, where they would have got 50,000 fans.
All right, 1968 was the first Aussie tour. The Galahs went. Curly was a part of that. Of course, he tossed the coin on the weekend, which was fantastic. But on the back of Andy Hunter coming back in and talking about China and where Port Adelaide are with that. Now, I'm going to try and jump 40 years ahead now, and so we're just speculating here because we never would have thought 30 years ago that there was going to be an AFL.
No, never.
We wouldn't have thought 5 years ago that there'd be games being played in China. So I think it's within the realms of possibility that in 40 years' time, the hybrid game will be gone and we will see Australia play a team in China.
I don't mind.
We will see Australia play a team
I love that
from the
concept.
Philippines.
As long as it's our code being promoted, like the game next year where we played at Adelaide Arena, as long as it's our code that is being promoted overseas. I think what Port Adelaide did this year's been fantastic. They're going again next year, and I'm all for that, Smiley.
All right, well then as the extension as they try to build towards that, and they've tried it before where they've had two teams go and play a game in London. Are we at that stage where State of Origin is just too difficult to fit into the schedule?
Sadly.
Then could we have an all-star game where the two Australian teams go and play in China or they go and play in India? Or is it, I'm thinking before it gets to the stage where the level of play is good enough in those countries for that to happen? Or do we just leave it that next year the Crows are playing Carlton in India?
Yep. No, that's the concept I like now. Port Adelaide have started. They're playing the Gold Coast.
They've opened the door to international, Coach.
They won't be the only side that'll go overseas. I wouldn't have thought to play a game of AFL footy, and I don't mind that. We're exposing our code to the world. And look, one day they'll play a game in India, they'll play a game in America, they'll do all those sorts of things. But the hybrid game, no.
All right, let's have a talk about the Ashes, Coach. We've got to have a chat about it. The Aussie team's now been named. Of course, the English team's been named. And you go, you've had a concern over the last month that the first game in the Gabba could be over in 3 days. Now you've seen the selections. Has your opinion changed?
Well, no, it hasn't, because I base that, Smythe, on the fact that we've probably got the best pace attack in the world in Cummins, Mitchell Stark and Hazelwood, and they're on fire at the moment. Look, I really believe that there's always a bit of juice in the deck at the Gabba early in the season, and I think our bowlers will expose that, and I just hope the England batting is up to scratch. I don't think it is. I'm not convinced. Alistair Cook hasn't made a run. I'm not convinced that their batting is quite strong enough.
All right, one of the things I've loved about cricket, Cage, as a fan, I haven't played like you have, is the tradition of the game. I love the Ashes series. I hope it stays forever.
Spectacular.
I'm starting to get a little bit narky, and I want to see your opinion on this. They're starting to change the terms. Now, they've done it in footy. Now they're starting to do it in cricket. We don't call them the stumps anymore. We call them the poles.
Don't start
We don't call it the change room. We call it the sheds.
Don't change
And there was an article in the paper earlier this week saying the pitch at the Gabba is juicy. Where are we going, Cage?
Look, cricket is a traditional game. It's a game played by gentlemen. It's a gentleman's... No, it is.
It could be stretching it a little bit on the back of some of the banter that goes on.
Well, true, but it's a gentleman's game at the end of the day. And the stumps aren't poles, they're stumps. The dressing rooms aren't the shed, it's a dressing room. And why do they say, oh, they've got 6 players in the shed, or he's had his 3 poles been knocked out? What a ridiculous...
I want to know how the pitch is juicy. What do we get from that?
The grass has got a bit of juice in it.
Bit of juice.
Poles. Oh, fair income.
Does that annoy you though, Cage, as a traditionalist of the game?
It does, because it's a traditional game, cricket. Just call it the dressing rooms.
All right, just quickly, is there something you can see coming for Alistair Cook that's going to be good news? Because leading into this, it hasn't been. England need him to get going and to get confident for it to be a decent
Well,
season.
he's opening the dig, and that's important that England get away to a start. He's a very experienced campaigner. He's been a captain of England. Joe Root's the other player that's got to make runs. If those two have a lean to of Australia, it's Bob the Bombs. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Sayonara.
All right, when you're talking bye-bye, Cage, it's bye-bye for us. Hope you've enjoyed the show, everybody. Look forward to your company next time we're on.
Bye, everyone.
She's out. Done. Boom.